it is possible to analyze the events in Yemen in the form of political analysis. And you might have scholars there, Mauritius, more competent than I am. My specialization is eschatology. So I would want to confine myself to an analysis of the events in Yemen on the basis of eschatology. When I do so, I find a triangle of Akhir-ul-Zaman. A triangle is a figure with three corners, isn't it? Good. The Dari Muhammad gave us the triangle of Akhir-ul-Zaman. In one corner of the triangle, he said, Allahumma barik lana fi Shamina. He refers to Sham, which is Syria and Palestine. But Damascus is the heart of Sham. And he refers to Sham as our Sham, our beloved Sham. And he prays to Allah for blessings on his beloved Sham. Sham is important for Akhir-ul-Zaman, Damascus. Because the three most important people in Akhir-ul-Zaman are number one, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, who is the return. Number two, Imam al-Mahdi. And number three, Dajjal. And all three are going to be in Damascus at the same time. At the same time. And the second corner of the triangle, he said, Allahumma barik lana fi Shamina wa Yemenina. So he referred to Yemen as my Yemen. He loved Yemen. He loved Yemen. And he prays for Allah's blessings on Yemen. Yemen is also very important for Akhir-ul-Zaman. Why? Because the major sign of the last days is that a fire will come out of Yemen and will drive people to their place of assembly for judgment. If your fire is coming out of Yemen, and this is not the fire that you're going to cook your biryani with, it's a revolutionary fire. If a fire is going to come out of Yemen, who are the people who are going to be driven? Answer. To locate the answer, you got to go to the third corner of the triangle. After he has said, Allahumma barik lana fi Shamina wa Yemenina, this hadith is Sahih Bukhari. Then the people ask him, O Messenger of Allah, what about our Najd? Once upon a time, if you use the word Constantinople, everybody knew what was Constantinople. Until it was banished from our vocabulary by those who do not want us to remember the prophecy of Muhammad of a conquest of Constantinople which comes after the nuclear war, after the Najd. Once upon a time the word Najd, it's prohibited now to use the word Constantinople in Turkey. If you go to Turkey and you use the name Constantinople, you'll be arrested, you know that. That's why they put Istanbul, because they don't want you to remember the prophecy of Nabi Muhammad. That's why. Similarly, 100 years ago, everybody knew where was Najd. Everybody knew Najd. Today, Najd is forgotten. Najd is forgotten. Nobody knows about that. What is Najd? You'll be surprised. Why? Because very sinfully, disgracefully, shamefully, they have banished the name that the Prophet used, banished it, and replaced it with this shameful thing called Saudi Arabia. But Najd is the Sunnah. If Muhammad used the name Najd, then that is the Sunnah. If he used the name Constantinople, then that is the Sunnah. The reason why they have managed the word Najd by giving us the new name Saudi Arabia, is because they don't want you to remember this triangle of Akhir Zaman. When they ask him about our Najd, which Najd were they talking about? Arabia has the Hijaz on the western side of the peninsula, and on the eastern side of the peninsula is Najd. In Najd you have the capital city Riyadh, you have Tehran, you have all the oil fields in Najd. Okay? And in the Hijaz you have Makkah and Medina, you have Jeddah. So if the people in the Hijaz, in Makkah, if they ask about our Najd, and if they didn't drink a gallon of whiskey, and they're stone drunk, which Najd would they be referring to? Answer, they'd be referring to the Najd which is next door to the Hijaz. I don't know why common sense has gone to you. So when they asked about our Najd, they were talking about the Najd which is next door, not in Iraq or in Disneyland. When they asked about our Najd, he was silent. That silence was meant to send an ominous message. That silence. He refused to talk. He was silent. And then they asked a second time, what about our Najd? And once again, don't come with this rubbish. It is utter rubbish to come to tell me that Najd is in Iraq and bring this hadith and that hadith and take them all and throw them away because this is common sense. When they asked for a second time, what about our Najd? Meaning the Najd which is next door. Then he said, and those words, prophetic words, have come to pass completely. He said, from there, pointing to the east, will come fitna. That will be tests and trials. One of the biggest tests and trials of all came from Najd. In 1974, when Najd made the deal with Kissinger, that oil will be sold for the US dollars and the petrodollar monetary system came to be. From Najd will come fitna. From Najd will come earthquakes, and there can be political earthquakes, And finally he said about Najd that that is Qarn al-Shaytan. The word Qarn has two meanings. It can mean a horn, or it can mean an age or an epoch. Proper methodology, not helter-skelter methodology, is to go first to the Book of Allah. And when we go to the Book of Allah, every time that Allah uses the word Qarn in the Quran, always an age, never a horn. And so we come to the conclusion that when he said Qarn al-Shaytan, he was referring to a satanic age. A satanic age. The Saudi attack on Yemen, blatant aggression, is meant to provoke Sunni Shia civil war. That's why. They tried it in Iraq, Sunni Shia civil war. They achieved some success, but not complete success. They tried it in Syria, Sunni Shia civil war. They're beating the drums of war against the Shia. They achieved some success. Plenty, bloody success, but they did not achieve complete success. So now the last thing they're doing is Yemen. to try to foment Shia Sunni civil war in the world of Islam. But they plan their plans, and Allah plans His plans. And my analysis again is eschatological, that this attack on Yemen is eventually going to culminate with a fire which will come out of Yemen, whether they like it or whether they don't. Prophet Muhammad has prophesied, and that fire will drive them to their place of assembly for judgment.